If you're a fan of Fox and Friends, you know, we've had Brian Kilmeade on this show plenty of times. In fact, he does the show before us. So we have some of his listeners. If you're a fan of Fox and Friends, you certainly know this name. She has been a meteorologist on Fox for quite some time now. And, boy, she's covered some pretty nasty hurricanes over the years, that is for sure, including, I'll list the name of them, Harvey, Sandy, Irene, Igor, Earl, and Katrina. That's a lot of nasty weather. Always appreciate it when we have guests from Fox News coming on our show. Janice Dean joining us right now. Janice, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
How are you, Janice?
I'm good. How are you guys? I mean, it's hot out there, right?
I was just going to ask you about that. I'm so sick of it. So I drove out to San Diego over the weekend to play some golf. I wanted to get out of the hot weather. And I'm out there, and it's like 100 degrees. I couldn't even play golf in San Diego. Yeah. What's going on, Janice?
You've had record heat out there. It's been crazy. I'm glad, you're safe inside and there's air conditioning.
Yeah, it was 115 yesterday. I think it's been 100 degrees for 40 straight days here.
It's absolutely crazy. I was going to ask you, though, isn't it the easiest job on the planet to be a meteorologist in Las Vegas? It's just, there's not going to be a cloud in the sky. It's going to be about 110 degrees. It rains here like twice a year. I mean, really, if you were going to be a meteorologist, wouldn't you want to be a meteorologist in Vegas?
You'll have to ask your locals about that.
It seems like in New York, you guys got it, because that's where your Fox is out of, right? New York, right?
Yes, but I do national weather. So I do cover, this morning I definitely covered the heat across the Southwest because it is such a big story.
That is absolutely crazy. You've been at Fox News now for how many years, Janice?
17.
Wow.
I started late 2003.
That is incredible. Wow, a great career you've had. So I want to ask you, and not to get into some controversial things, but obviously, as you know, there's been some, there's been some controversial things that have happened at Fox News over the years. You've made appearances on Bill O'Reilly's show and all that. And I have to ask you this: has anyone ever treated you inappropriately? I would imagine you've been asked this question before. In nature, sexually, has anyone ever said anything inappropriate to you in 17 years?
At Fox?
Yeah.
Yes, I do write about it. I wrote a memoir last year called Mostly Sunny, and in it I detail harassment from Roger Ailes, my boss.
And again, we don't have to go into grave detail here, but just for our listeners, I mean, what are the types of things that Roger Ailes said to you? Because we've had other women from Fox come on our show and said some really weird things that he made them do. Like, what's the weirdest thing that he either said to you or made you do?
Well, he didn't really make me do anything. This was actually as I was interviewing for the job.
Right.
He would always sort of walk this line of trying to be funny. And listen, throughout my whole broadcasting career, this kind of thing was prevalent. So it's not just Fox News that I experienced this. But there was one interview where he asked me to, come to a hotel bar lobby and have drinks with him. And there was weird comments that I just sort of laughed off. And then there was a phone conversation when I was interviewing for the job where, he asked me to say some interesting things to him. And I laughed it off and said, this is not a 1-900 number.
Oh, my God.
Wow.
Did you think that the movie that was made was fairly accurate? Did you watch it?
Yes, I'm very good friends with Megyn Kelly. We went through that time together, and it was a difficult time. Listen, I'm still at Fox News. I believe in the management, and I believe they wanted to make changes. And during that time, there were things that we knew about, but I certainly didn't know to the extent of the behavior that was going on.
Understood.
When there was the lawsuit going on, and when people were asked if they had stories or experiences with Mr. Ailes, I went in and told my story. So, I did what I thought was correct. But as I mentioned, my whole broadcasting career has been filled with that kind of stuff.
That's unfortunate. I'm sorry you've had to go through that, because you're obviously very talented and very good at what you do. And I'm sorry, nobody should ever have to go through that, man or woman. And I'm sorry you did. And I'm glad you're still there.
Thank you. But, it's hopefully it's getting better.
I think it is, and I think in this day and age with cell phones and everything else, I think that probably helps more than hurts. But I'm glad that your story was told, and I'm glad that you were brave enough to be able to talk about that. I have to ask you a little bit about Bill O'Reilly. And, we've heard stories that have come out. I don't know whether they're true or not when it comes to Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson. You've heard some of these stories, I'm sure. But let's start with Bill O'Reilly. I mean, that, a lot of these payments have been made because, Bill O'Reilly allegedly did some very inappropriate things. Did he ever do anything or say anything inappropriate to you?
No, he was always a perfect gentleman with me.
Well, I'm glad. I am very glad to hear that. I am very glad to hear that. What is it like in this day and age, being on a show like Fox and Friends? Obviously, you have a ton of viewers. So what is it like with the divide that we face as a nation? I just feel like, you guys do laugh and joke around a lot, which I think is important. How important is that? I mean, it just seems like we're in very tense times right now, and there's a lot of divide. How important is it for you guys to just kind of be a little more lighthearted, which I think you guys are, and just make people laugh every day?
Well, we try. Listen, we're all social distancing right now. I've been at home since March, and I like to think that I'm the coolest mom on the block because I have a green screen in one of my bedrooms. So my kids think I'm pretty awesome. Listen, we try our best. I've known
Sure.
these people. I've worked with them for many, many years.
Sure.
And this is one of the hardest times people have gone through in history. So
Yeah.
I think if the times that you can bring a little levity and joke around, it makes you kind of like take a breath of relief. Because
No question.
we're constantly being barraged with terrible news.
I agree. I couldn't agree with you more. And by the way, we've had Brian Kilmeade on the show. He's fantastic, and he comes on actually with his morning show before us. So one of the main reasons that we wanted to have you on, Janice, besides talking about your career, of course, is I want to talk about this the testifying that you'd had to do with this New York nursing home, these New York nursing home deaths. You've had some tragedy in your family in regards to this issue. I know you've demanded a full investigation with subpoena power. Can you talk a little bit about this and give us some knowledge in this case for maybe some people that are unaware of it?
Well, here in New York, we've had the most deaths of any state from coronavirus, and many of those deaths happened in nursing homes. It happened personally for us. My husband, both of his parents died of COVID-19 in different assisted living nursing home
I'm so sorry to
residences.
hear that. That's horrible.
Our plan was we were going to have them together, and for many years they were struggling with their health, and for many months we struggled on what to do with them because they couldn't take care of each other. They couldn't take care of themselves. We found a place that was going to take care of both of them, but his dad had dementia and needed rehab. So he was in a nursing home, and unfortunately, we lost him at the end of March. We didn't even know he was sick because he was in lockdown since mid-March, and he died of coronavirus. We didn't find out till the death certificate. 2 weeks later, his mom got the virus and died in a hospital, but contracted the virus in her assisted living facility. So what I'm trying to do is bring awareness because Governor Cuomo, along with 4 other governors, by the way, in different states, had a mandate to put COVID-positive patients into nursing homes. I believe it could have contributed to the death of my husband's father, but we won't know until we get an independent investigation. And the only way to do that is through legislation. And yesterday I went to Albany to try to get legislators to help me with that. And I succeeded. I have bipartisan support for a bill that is going to propose that we have an independent, bipartisan, outside investigation of the nursing home tragedy.
And so exactly what happened there, from what I understand, the White House, as early as the 17th, set out a statement that said, advised for all the states not to put people who had previously been hospitalized with COVID-19 in nursing home population. And on the 25th, Governor Cuomo passed that mandate to require that. The death total as of now claims to be 6,000, but apparently it could be as high as 12 to 14,000. And Andrew Cuomo is writing a book about how great of a response he had to the coronavirus. I mean, what are your thoughts about just how Andrew Cuomo is trying to basically gaslight the entire country into thinking that he did something right when he did a lot of things wrong?
I think there's bipartisan support that he shouldn't be writing a book right now in the middle of a pandemic. But you know what? He came up with a poster of his COVID mountain of death that he tried to sell on his government website as well. So I'm not really surprised by this. And that's why I'm trying to bring at least some awareness to what is going on or what did go on in the nursing homes. And New York State is the only state that will not count the people that died in hospitals that contracted the virus from their nursing home. And that's why I believe they are hiding the numbers, or he's hiding the numbers, and there is a cover-up.
And is he trying to prevent you? Has he got involved to prevent you from testifying or getting support from legislature at all?
Well, I actually was supposed to testify at some hearings a couple of weeks ago. I was on the list as a witness, and all of a sudden, at the 23rd hour, I was taken off the list, and I found out it's because some people were uncomfortable with me testifying as a witness with my story of how I lost my in-laws. But this past Monday, they made another roundtable discussion with legislators, and I was able to tell my story. But certainly there has been some people trying to silence my voice.
Well, I think that's inappropriate. First of all, it's not like you're just someone that has an opinion. You're someone that lost her in-laws. I'm so sorry to hear that. It's horrible. So the pain that your family is going through. And I agree, by the way. I don't think Cuomo should be writing a book. I think it's extremely inappropriate at this time in a way to try to profit off of this tragedy. I think that's horrible, just like I think it's inappropriate for anybody to profit off this tragedy, like the My Pillow guy, for example. I mean, I just think it's wrong, and I feel really horrible for what you and your family have had to go through. What do you want to see happen here? I would imagine you want to see accountability, right? When it comes to any politician, Republican or Democrat, if they made mistakes and it was part of the reason or a big part of the reason why you lost your in-laws and people died, you want to see accountability, right? This has nothing to do with politics, whether you're a Democrat or Republican. It has to do with politicians making bad decisions that could have led to death, correct?
Right. I do the weather on Fox News Channel. I'm the meteorologist, and no one knows who I voted for or what my politics are. But because I wasn't seeing the questions being asked of the governor, I don't care if he's Republican or Democrat,
right.
I thought it was important to raise these questions because no one was answering them. He was going on CNN with his brother Chris and yucking it up and laughing while people are dying, everywhere in this state. So that's why I decided, it was important to do this. My husband, it's very hard for him to watch me do this kind of stuff. It's very hard for us to mourn properly when we don't have answers or accountability. We weren't able to have a funeral or a wake or last rites or anything.
It's horrible.
And then George Floyd gets 3.
Well, I don't want to bring George Floyd into this, but let me ask you this question. This is my opinion, Janice, and again, I'm so sorry for what you and your family have had to go through. My opinion is I think this was a failing across the board, from the top all the way down. I think our politicians in general, both left and right, top to bottom, have not done a good job in handling this pandemic. I think it's why you see so many people that have lost their lives, sadly, 170,000 people. Would you agree with that? And I'm not just talking about Cuomo. I agree with you on that, obviously. I think across the board, this has been a failing, Republican and Democrat. I think there have been a lot of mistakes that have been made, and I think it's inexcusable where you see where we are right now as a country as being the richest, wealthiest country in the world.
There's a lot of blame to go around, certainly, but the U.S. isn't the only, place that's going through this. Europe was doing well and now is, has a resurgence of the virus. So I think, in hindsight, we're not there yet. We can't, I hope that when we get past this, we can go back and look at what we did wrong and improve and try to, see who went wrong. There is plenty of blame to go around. But what I know is in my state, my governor made mistakes, and I need to see him getting some kind of accountability for the mistakes he made. At the very beginning, had he said, listen, my hair was on fire. I tried to make sure that there was enough hospital beds. We thought we were going to have so many deaths. I did what I could. I made a mistake. You and I wouldn't be having this conversation. I actually would have accepted that and moved on.
That's interesting to me. You're a very forgiving person. So you're telling me that if he just said, look, I screwed up, you just want him to admit that he made some mistakes. Sounds like to me.
At the very beginning, he actually said, if you have a problem with something that I've done as your governor, then you blame me. The buck stops at my desk.
And
had he made that, made good on that promise, and come out and said, I made some terrible mistakes. I am deeply sorry. Right. I don't believe he wanted to kill anybody purposely.
Right.
But the fact that he shirks responsibility, any kind of responsibility, and continues to blame everyone and anything for the mistakes that he made, makes our grief worse.
I don't disagree with you. And by the way, you just posted something on Twitter. I want to read it because I agree with you on that. You said Governor Cuomo should be writing condolence cards, not a book. We just posted an article on our Twitter page if people want to read it. And your new book, by the way, I wanted to mention that as well, just coming out, called Mostly Sunny. I agree with your tweet there. I think it's I can't. What is your husband? What's going through his mind when he heard that Governor Cuomo was writing a book? I mean, I can't even imagine.
Well, I think we're used to this governor's arrogance, and I think he's very tone deaf. And there's a lot of gaslighting going on from many people. Listen,
right.
Like I said, there's plenty of blame to go around, and hopefully we can have a 9/11 style commission on this whole event once it's done and over with. But his arrogance and the fact that he won't own up to anything and just continues to do these gross things like publish a book in the middle of a pandemic. It's just, it's just another example that this guy really thinks he can't do wrong at all.
Yeah, I hope the title of the book is "This Is Me Gaslighting You" or trying to gaslight you. So
well, listen, I think there is bipartisan support, and people think that this is kind of a bad timing on his part.
Well, and that's a good thing in a state like New York. So when you look at the other states that, Pennsylvania was one, Massachusetts was one, I believe Illinois, New Jersey, and California were the other states where they forced hospitals. Michigan, I'm sorry, where they forced, all Democratic states, don't know why, but where they forced hospitals, except Massachusetts, but they forced hospitals to take in patients forced nursing homes to take in patients from hospitals. Have you had anyone reach out from any of those states and kind of share a story similar to what happened to your in-laws?
Absolutely. And I think because I'm so vocal on social media, I've been hearing from people that have experienced the same thing. There's one thing that brings us together is people who have gone through the same kind of experience. And especially, you brought up some of the protests were going on. I mean, listen, it was very hard because we could not go to funerals, and yet we're seeing peaceful protests, quote unquote, with thousands of people gathering, and that was okay. So there are multiple things that are going on in the country that makes it very hard to grieve and makes our grieving even, more felt. Heartfelt.
Sure. No, understood. I want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about your book, Mostly Sunny. I would imagine it talks a lot about your career and being a meteorologist over the years, and of course now on Fox and Friends. Talk a little bit about this book and where people can find it.
You can find it anywhere. It's on Amazon. It actually came out a year ago, Listen, if I was about to release it, obviously there would be another chapter on coronavirus and the extreme tragedy that we've been through as a family. But as a whole, it's about my life and the things that I have gone through in my 50 years on this planet. And some of the hardest times have given me the most valuable lessons. So I believe the things that you go through in life, even though you're going through a storm at the time, there is always a purpose for that. So, the things that we are going through as a family and as a country and as citizens, I hope and I believe at the end of the tunnel, there will be lessons learned from this. So along with the things that I've experienced in my career, I certainly talk about that, but I was also diagnosed 15 years ago with multiple sclerosis and the battle I've had to deal with that. But you know what? At the end of the day, I feel great gratitude for the family that I have and the experiences that have gotten me to the place that I am today. So that's really what the book is all about.
Well, Janice, it sounds like you have a wonderful family and a very strong family. And again, my thoughts and prayers for the loss that your family's had to go through with your in-laws. It's just absolutely horrible. But I am glad that you are a voice and you are telling your story. It's very important to hold politicians accountable no matter what side of the aisle they're on. And I'm so glad you are doing that. Thank you for answering our questions and talking a little bit about your book as well. We appreciate you, Janice. Thank you so much for coming on, and always look forward to hearing that weather every morning on Fox and Friends. You do a great job, Janice. You really do. And we appreciate
Stay
you.
Cool.
Thank you.
Cool, my friend.
We'll try. We'll try. Okay.
That's very punny.
Thanks, Janice. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Janice.
Have a good one. That's Janice Dean, meteorologist on Fox and Friends. Really inspirational story. I was totally unaware that she was going through those health problems.